Hello, fellow book nerds! This is Gabby, and today we are gonna be reading many vampire books because they're back, baby! They're back! Hello, everyone! Okay, so, like the intro might have hinted you, today is the start of a new vlog. I'm so excited because I've been waiting for a while for this. So, the new vlog is all about vampires because I think vampires are back. They're in vogue, they're in fashion. There's so many books new books coming out with vampires in them, and I just think it's so much fun. And I love vampires. I mean, I was a Twilight girly. What can I say? It was a dark time, but it also was an amazing time. I am so excited about the books I'm reading in this vlog. It's an extensive list. I think I've written down like 5 or 6 that I really want to pick up. Most of them were in my library, which was really cool. So we're gonna have to start making our way slowly through that. I already picked up 2 of those library books. This wasn't even on the list, but I have heard of this, and it was in the library, and I realized it's a graphic novel. So we're gonna read this one, Fangs by Sarah Andersen, and then Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. We're probably gonna start off with this book. It's so freaking chunky. I was not expecting it, but I've heard good things. It's by Grady, Hendrix. So yeah, we're just gonna kick off this vlog. I'm gonna read loads of books and we're gonna talk about all of them. I am beyond excited for this one. How have I only read one chapter? 37 pages, and I already care about these women, their friendship so much, and I just want all of them to be happy. Impressive work, Mr. Hendrix. Impressive. So yeah, I'm 37 pages in, one chapter in. So far we have Suburbs, mother called Patricia of 2 children, and her book club. That's not really a book club, but it is a book club where she meets with a bunch of women from the neighborhood and they read true crime and like horror and thriller novels. And it just did such a good job. I mean, it did take like, we got introduced to the book club and it's 1988, and now it's going to be 1993. So we've got quite the time jump, but it did such a good job of like establishing the friendship and making you care for the woman and their relationship. It's just such a good job. Yeah, I'm having a good time. No vampires yet, but so good. So far, so good. I know this man didn't just say you have too much time on your hands and you need to stop this mass hysteria. Oh my god, I'm being gaslit. This book is gaslighting me. I mean, the men in this book are gaslighting the women in this book, that's for sure. Oh my, shut the... So mad. I'm feeling emotions. I'm impressed how this man managed to capture the condescension that some men have. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. Oh, the righteous anger I'm feeling. This man telling her to apologize. And you see, I keep referring to this man, and I don't even mean the bad guy in the story. I mean their fucking husband. I am rage. This bastard. nothing sacred. It's Sunday, which means it's time to create a bunch of videos. So get ready with me and let's talk about the book I read, because I already finished the book and it feels good. Alright, so I finished the first book of the vlog. So you saw all of my reactions and boy was it wild. We had a wild time with this one. So I gave you like a little bit of an intro, but I guess we can kind of talk more about what it was about in the first place. So in this book we follow a housewife who lives in this super quaint place called Mount Pleasant, so a little bit on the nose, but whatever. She lives there with her husband, with her daughter, her son, and she's got this book club with her friends where they like read true crime novels and talk about them. And it's set in the 90s. In the beginning of the book, something kind of weird starts happening, and the main character actually gets attacked by one of her neighbors that looks like she has like some kind of like rabbit disease because she like bites her or whatever. So she's like, "Wow, that's so weird." And then this neighbor dies, and the nephew of the neighbor like kind of moves into her house and takes over. The whole story is like obviously like, I don't think it's a spoiler. The guy's a vampire or something close to it anyway. And in the like intro to the book, Grady Hendrix talked about how he wanted this to be kind of like an ode to his mom and womanhood and motherhood and how much work it takes, and also like this commentary on all of these like super charming men, like, you know, serial killers basically. Like Ted Bundy and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the background. And then the book follows the main character befriending this guy called James and the new neighbor, and kind of realizing something's wrong, and then, you know, slaying vampires. And I had an amazing time with it. It was so much fun. I read basically the whole book, like by like maybe first 50 pages. I read this yesterday during sprints with Sasha and Cleo, and it was such a fun time. I honestly wasn't expecting to read that much. I was like, yeah, like I'll show up, I'll read a little bit. I probably won't finish this book today, but you know, I'll finish it sometime in a week. It's fine. And then the book just like, it just flew by. I read it so quickly and it was just so good. And I think the writing style was really good. I think it was kind of not what I expected either, because it was really a story about kind of gaslighting and patriarchy. And like, I guess I should have known that from the forward, but like, I feel like Grady Hendrix really nailed it in terms of like what it feels like, or felt like, at least at the time, like to be a woman and to kind of be told to like basically shut up and do what your husband says and all that kind of stuff. It just really was portrayed well. And I was surprised how early the main character, I mean, obviously no spoilers, but the main character kind of caught up really quickly with the fact that the guy sass, and she like really tried to bring this to other people's attention. And it's just like the way she was dismissed was upsetting to see, but at the same time, you know, it made sense. And I really loved how it was done. I had a great time, honestly. Like, I just enjoyed it so much. Even though it was grim at times, it was quite dark. I mean, the like finale of it was quite disturbing. And like the way that there's a trigger in this for sexual assault, and also kind of like assault of a minor as well. So like, be careful if you decide to pick this up. But I think it was done as well as it could have. Like, honestly, there's so many themes, so many conversations. And funnily enough, I was like, I wish I read this for a book club, like maybe for my book club or something, because it is a standalone. But I just thought, you know, I need someone to talk about this with, and I had no one to talk about, and I was like, damn it, I need someone to talk about it with, because this book is so good. And yeah, safe to say I gave it 5 stars. I think it had so many prudent conversations, so many very like poignant commentaries, and also it was just a freaking good time. Really fast read, really fun, and fast paced, and like really dynamic. And the characters were really good and really well set up as well. So like 5 out of 5 for me, and massive win. And I'm so happy because this vlog was kind of like didn't start as early as I hoped it would, and now we're kind of back. So I'm really happy. I'll talk to you about later when I read more and I get ready. Just popping in to tell you I read another book. I just finished Fangs by Sarah Andersen, and this book is a graphic novel. It's super cute. It's about a vampire and her werewolf boyfriend, and it's just their everyday life, and it's like hella cute. I mean, I read this in like 15 minutes because it's like tiny and it's a graphic novel, but it was a good time. It means I finished another book, and it was so cute. Honestly, like if you can get your hands on this, I would highly recommend. It was adorable, like just like simple drawings, but it just kind of, it was funny and it was cute, and I had a good time with it. So yeah, another book done. Hello. I have started a new book, making progress. So this one's called Fledgling by Octavia Butler, and this one, let me put you down so I'm not like messing with you too much. Fledgling by Octavia Butler. So Octavia Butler is a famous, I would say, author who's written things like Kindred and Parable of the Sower, and I have read Kindred and loved it. So when I realized she wrote a vampire book, I was like, I'm jumping on that book right now. So I actually started this as an audiobook, and it's really good and well done, but I've been having issues with script where bunch of the book will just be missing, like pages will just skip around, and that happened just now and I was so annoyed. So I kind of got this from the library as well to read along, but this much into it, about 90 pages in. So in this one we open with a girl in a cave in a cave. A girl in a cave. She wakes up blind, scarred, doesn't know what she is, doesn't know where she is, doesn't know what happened, and she has amnesia, so doesn't remember anything before waking up in the cave. And she, feeds. She's a vampire, so she knows she has to feed, so she like kills animals, drinks them, eats them to get better. She walks out onto the street, and this guy finds her, who's called Wright, and he's like 23 or something. He's like, oh hi, do you need help, you look so young. And that's kind of first when we learn that she looks like an 11-12-year-old black girl, but we can tell from her like thought pattern and whatnot that she's way more developed than that. So basically the whole premise is that the main character is a genetically modified vampire. So there are vampires in this world, and they do exist by themselves, but what made her genetically modified was the fact that she had a bit of human DNA in her and was trying to be made more sun resistant. So that's why she's black, because she's got black DNA, I think from her mother, if I'm understanding correctly what I'm reading. And the mythology in this one is so interesting. So she's like technically 53 years old, and we learned this like kind of quickly, and it's in the synopsis as well, so I'm not spoiling it, hopefully. But we learned she's 53 years old, which is still kind of a child for a vampire because they mature slower, but her like computational ability to like understand things is like an adult, but she looks like an 11-year-old, and it's very confusing. And it's like she does have relations with this grown-ass man who I thought was in his 50s, but then turns out he's like 23, so I was like, oh okay. But still, she looks like a child. So, if it walks like a duck and talks like a dog, it's probably a pedophile. So I'm judging like real harsh reading this, and it's very uncomfortable because there's multiple scenes of them having sex and she like, I know she's not, but like the fact that you like are attracted to that. And then there's the added element of the vampire venom or whatever they inject when they take a lick. Like, it's basically like mind control. Like, the humans are super susceptible to like suggestions, and they feel super attached, and are pretty much willing to do anything for the vampire. So it's not like his own free will either. So it's very complicated. So far I'm loving this though. It's so interesting. Even though it's really gross, I feel like it's gonna be some kind of commentary as well, because it's Victoria E. Butler, and Octavia E. Butler, and I have all the faith in her. I'm anticipating this to be really good. So far, like, I'm so addicted, and I really want to keep reading, and I'm really enjoying the audiobook. So I'm gonna like read the audiobook, and then whenever there's a scene that's like cut off randomly, I can read the physical version. But so far, really loving it. It's super, super, super interesting lore for the vampires as well. Today is this kind of day, so we're gonna do this lying down. I finished Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler, and thoughts. Right, okay, so this book is so conflicting because I feel like this book has the most interesting vampire lore out of all the books I read. Really, really unique, different, very interesting how it was executed, and their history, and how they're basically a different race. And like everything I learned about the vampires, I was fascinated. I loved learning about it. I think it was like literally the most unique way I've encountered, and I've read a couple now. So I think that was really done well, really, really good. But on the actual plot, I feel like it was just a little meh. Like, it was fine, but it was kind of boring after a while. So the whole thing of the book basically is this girl lost her memory. Then she slowly uncovers what her life was like, and then there's like a trial. We got interrupted, but anyways, what was I saying? So the plot I felt like was a little bit basic. I wasn't that interested in the actual plot, like what was happening. I felt like that was a little boring, and I didn't care that much. And this whole book felt mostly like an opportunity to info dump about how cool these vampires are. So basically, like the concept of the vampires and their lore and history and how they work, that was really interesting. And the whole book was just an opportunity to, yeah, like exposition about it, because the main character lost her memory, so she doesn't remember, so we had to learn it with her. But the actual plot itself I found rather boring. And then the pedophilia issue. I'm not saying it was advertising it, but I'm saying it was advertising it, because what the hell? First of all, we didn't need that many explicit scenes. Just like tell us it's happening. I don't need to see it happening. And then also the fact that the vampire here is a child, not only looks like a human child, but is like fully developed in their culture. No, is a child in their culture as well, in the vampire culture. So like the vampire culture sees her as a child. So therefore, in any culture, she's a child. It's just, to me, so bizarre why this decision was made. I feel like if she was like looked 16 and was like 16 years mentally of Ina age, Ina is the vampires, then I'd be like, icky, but whatever, fine. Or if she looked like a child but was fully developed Ina. Okay, no, that's big gross, but that's kind of like Interview with the Vampire, right? Like the whole thing there is like Claudia like is like a vampire child, looks like a vampire, like a 10-year-old, but has lived like hundreds of years, so mentally is fully developed adult person, right? So that's like a different issue. But I feel like here, like the mental capacity was there, but you're not even mature in your own culture and species, so you are a child. This is so bizarre, and there's so many instances of like the act itself, like sexual acts themselves, but then also like talk about it and talk about smelling and desire. And it was just like, I would have loved this, I think, if this was not a child. Maybe again, like I think 16 where I would have been like, okay, I don't like it, but like I can understand it because we've seen 17-year-old vampires, you know, everywhere. So it's fine, whatever. Yeah, it's just the lack of maturity on both sides. To me, it was so unnecessary. And this many acts of, and it's like constant talking about her being tiny and her body being small and underdeveloped and a child's body. And then you tell me how they have sex. And you tell me how she's a child and has a child's body and then how they have sex. And they have sex so many times. I don't know. I felt really uncomfortable. I didn't like that. So overall, I'm going to give this book 3 stars because, well, pedophilia, that knocks a star out. That actually not probably knocks 2 stars out, if we're being honest. But then it was also boring. But then the actual vampire lore, very interesting. So a lot of mixed opinions, a lot of mixed feelings on this one. Also, Scribd finally responded to my email. Turns out they having a playback issues. So any book I pick up from now on may have this problem. So that's fun. But anyway, 3 stars, and we're ready to move on to book 2, and I probably need to get out. Why did no one tell me this book has polyamory and really good chemistry? Why do I look so great? Oh, it's my light. I am not that flustered, I promise. But hello. We're back at my happy place, which means in front of my beautiful books, and I have another book to talk to you about. I mean, I did finish it, so like not a great vlog of me reading it, but you saw there's a lot of emotion there. And that book is Silver Under Nightfall by Chupeco. So this book is actually what inspired this video. I really wanted to read this. It's about vampires and it's Chupeco's new book. And like I'm interested in their work, so I wanted to check it out. And I thought, you know, let's make like a whole video about vampires. And I'm gonna say it did not disappoint. I had maybe not even the highest of expectations, but it kind of slapped. So in Silver Under Nightfall, it's set in this fictional high fantasy place called Aloria, and we follow Remington Pendergast, who is an armiger, or like it has a different name. That's his title. Armiger is a title, and he's like a reaper, and reapers are humans who were brought up and fought and like trained to kill vampires, so his whole job is killing vampires. But vampires in this world are quite interesting because they're intelligent, they're not just like mindless creatures, they have societies, they have countries, and they're actually, some of them are entering a treaty with humans, but there's like 5, 6, I don't know if you know exactly how many, but at least 5 courts, and these vampire courts are all kind of all about something different, and kind of how they approach humanity and that kind of stuff is different depending on which court you're in. So like the first court is like the ultimate evil that killed Remy's mother, so his dad used to be like a famous reaper before him, so his dad kind of trained him to be able to take revenge on the vampires that killed his mother. And then second court, I think, got wiped out. Fifth court got wiped out by fourth and third court, which is kind of the good court. And that's where our main vampire protagonists are coming in, which is Lady Song, who's the princess of the third court, or fourth court, I think. And then Malek, who is the king of third court, either or. For third floor, something like that, and they're engaged to each other. So when we open the story, there's this weird thing going on which is called the rot, and it's kind of like an illness for the vampires or people who get turned, and if they die they kind of become these bloodless, like frenzied mindless creatures. So Remy gets an offer of working together to figure out what this rod is about from the two vampires. And like, I didn't see this anywhere in the synopsis, but I feel like I do want to mention, even though maybe it's like a light spoiler, I don't know, but I feel like you get the vibes really quickly unless you're a bit dense like Remy is. But it's a polyamorous romance. So we have Malek, Lady Song, whose name's Jaleh or something like that. And then we have Remy, and the two of them are engaged, but maybe there's, place for something else. And I feel like there's not that much rep in terms of polyamorous relationships, and I do think this one was really well executed, at least from the limited knowledge I have, which again, very limited because I'm not polyamorous, but I did think it was done very well and I enjoyed that aspect of it. Overall, this book was really enjoyable. I thought the society was interesting, the way the place the story was set, it was interesting. I do feel like maybe a little bit more padding out of the vampire world would have been useful to understand, and also maybe even padding out the human world, because we don't really get that much information about places outside of where we're living. So we know there's this kingdom or this big city called, I think Aluria is the kingdom, there's the city, and then there's a queen of it, and there's like peasants living around, but we don't really hear about other human countries, which I assume exist, so that'd be really interesting to learn. So there's like a little bit that left me wondering, but not in a bad way, just like I'm interested to know more. And this is first book in the series, which I thought this was a standalone, and I almost chose it for my standalone book club, so I'm glad I did it because it's not a standalone. It's definitely like a teaser for a sequel. So I don't know if it's like official that it's getting a sequel, or is it going to be like depending on how it performs, I don't know, but there's definitely potential space and kind of a need for a sequel. So I don't think it kind of ended where you're like comfortable just leaving it there. But it does have interesting world, interesting characters. I think the relationship dynamics are pretty healthy, really interesting. I think that like the sexual tension, all of that was done really well. And there's like a bunch of scenes that if you've seen, what is it called? Bridgerton season 1, when the Duke and the main character get married, and there's like the episode after beginning, there's kind of like a sequence like that, so I thought that was interesting. And yeah, overall I thought the chemistry worked. I thought the vampires had pretty interesting mythology if I didn't understand all of it, but it was still quite interesting to see. I've been really interested in like seeing portrayal of the vampires, because obviously it's such a like extensive lore, and so different everywhere. And this one, I think the author is Filipino, if I'm not lying, and I think that was an interesting perspective brought to this world and the mythology, and it was really like different and interesting. And I think the way the familiars and like the way vampire bites works is interesting and completely different to Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and then very different to Fledgling. So it's like so far very, very different views on vampires, and that's my favorite thing. Like there's so many ways to interpret them, although it does seem like sex and sexual tension and the sexual allure of vampires has been very prevalent in all of these. So interesting. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be the case going forward as well. I think this book is adult, because, well, I'm like 90% sure, 99% sure, unless YA got way spicier than I was informed. But yeah, it was really good. I'm gonna give it 4 stars, and I'm gonna look forward to the sequel. Definitely gonna look on Goodreads whether it was announced yet or not. But it was such a good time. Sorry I didn't update you as I was going. Bit of a crazy week, but it's Sunday today, and I just finished this morning, and I wanted to talk to you about it because it was really fun. Also, it's like pitch black and it's 2 p.m. How is this? Well, okay, not pitch black, but like, England, come on now, that's depressing, that is. But you know what, actually, like this very dreary, terrible weather makes me want to read about vampires, even though I keep feeling like it's 5 p.m. and I have to like do shit. It's only 2 p.m. and I could still read for many hours, so that's good. saving the realness. I said any book. Wrong side. Deathless Girls by Kiran, Millwood, Hargrave. So I am 100 pages into it, which means what I write about here. So this book so far is about two sisters. They're part of the traveler community, so means they, moving around in like caravans and living. That's kind of made them stand out from the country they live in, and they consider people who like live in cities and that kind of stuff, and more permanently set. They call them settled, the settlers, the settled. When people turn 17 in the traveler community, they have this divining where they're told what their future is by a seer through reading their palms, and the girls are very excited because this is going to be the day they are supposed to be divined and all that kind of stuff. But when they're coming back from the forest, their community gets attacked. So their whole settlement gets attacked. Everyone above the age of 17 gets murdered, including their mother. And then the rest they get taken into slavery and are sold into this household and for this like viscount or something, and the two sisters end up being in the kitchens, but the implication is that they're going to be serving girls, and we know that there's like exploitation going on, but we don't exactly know what. And there's this guy called the Dragon, who we don't know what his deal is, but he's very feared in the land. So that's kind of the setup. I quite like the writing. It's a very fairy tale-esque, like it feels quite like a fairy tale. Oh my god, the breathtaking origin story of the Brides of Dracula from the word. Okay, so that's what this book is about. See, I thought I knew that, but I'd read stuff and then forget it, so I didn't know I knew that. But yeah, retelling of the story of Brides of Dracula, so they're gonna become Brides of Dracula. Interesting. I'm pretty sure it's sapphic. But yeah, so far really well written. I am interested whether the authors got Romani origins or is part of the traveler community, because that definitely would elevate it. That is a big part of their identity, and being travelers, and they quite stand out from other people, like the settled people, because they're dark-skinned. So yeah, I need to like do some research. From like reading the back, it doesn't seem like the authors got anything to do with like Romani people or travelers. But curious to see where this is going. Now that I know it's a Dracula's Brides retelling, I'm intrigued. I never read Dracula, neither have I seen the movie. So we'll see. I know the basic concept. Finished another book. I finished Deathless Girls by Kiran, Millwood, Hargrave, and it was great to learn that the author actually, she talks about the travelers and the why she chose them. So, my sisters are kissing little twins and travelers. This is a much persecuted culture throughout history and has its origins in northern India, where my own family are from. And also she says, due to their lifestyle and appearance, travelers are maligned and enslaved throughout Europe for centuries. One of the most notorious slave owners was a 15th century Romanian prince, Vlad Tepes, also known as Vlad the Impaler and Vlad Dracul. So I really like that. I really like the justification of why the author chose to portray the characters as travelers. Makes me feel way better that this isn't like Lycanthropy 2.0, where we have a white author co-opting a culture that's not theirs. So overall, I really enjoyed this book. I think it worked well as a retelling. I think it was a fun origin story for the Dracula's Brides. I'm not gonna lie, I had to Wikipedia because I didn't know that much about them. Like I knew the concept existed, but I didn't know that much. So it was really interesting to see how the original book and what was shown there kind of incorporated into this book, and how the book was executed. I think it was done well. I wouldn't like scream from the rooftops about this being my next favorite book or anything like that. Okay, I feel like this is the trap sometimes with standalones. So like, I love standalones, I really do, and I think they can be so impactful. But sometimes when they're standalones, they can feel a little bit like you can't get too attached, or like I don't get that attached because I just no, this is a short journey and I'm just reading this story. But as a story that I read, a story of two sisters, I enjoyed it. I like that it was sapphic. I really like the writing as well. I thought it was really pretty. Felt like a fairy tale for sure. It turns out I have another book by the author called Mercies or something like that on Google Apple Books. So if I ever need a ebook, I know where to find Mercies. But yeah, overall I had a good time. I thought it was well executed. I think the ending was quite nice and bittersweet. Good job. Yeah. 3.5. I think that's fair. I think 3.5 is fair. I have started a new book as well in the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. So far already sapphic as well. I am only 30 pages in, so barely started. But so far I'm already really fascinated by the magic system, the world. It's so interesting. So there's like this thing called blood mages, and the main character's father is a blood mage, but in this world, also 30 pages, right? So I'm barely understanding anything. But in this world, they're blood mages, they're like magical people or magicians or whatever, wizards. They have these things attached to them which are like dead souls. I don't know exactly what it means, but to be a blood mage you have to register with the authorities and be under the not under influence, but like work for the count, whatever, the person that worked for the government basically. And the main character's father was like an independent blood mage, so was hiding and was on the run basically. And when she was 7 years old, people came into her house and killed her father. They lied to the authorities and they thought she wasn't a blood daughter of her father, so they didn't think she had magic either. But turns out she does have magic, and it's like X many years later, she's an adult, I think 19-year-old. By mistake, she shows her magic and they find out that she's a blood mage, so they're just taking her into custody. So a lot happened in the 30 pages. So far the main character is very prickly, so she kind of turned into a alcoholic drunkard in her ripe age of 19 because of the trauma of seeing her father literally murder in front of her eyes. But I'm very curious to see where it's going. It's definitely having a very interesting magic system so far. I'm very intrigued. I think I've heard that this is a polyamorous book as well, but I could be wrong, so we'll see. What did I read? 2 were sapphic, 3 were gay as an umbrella term, and 1 already was polyamorous, maybe 2. So basically the vampires are queer and we're here for it. I am having fun. But where are the vampires? Alright, I finished in the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland, and there were vampires. I'm not gonna tell you anything about the vampires because I feel like it's quite late in the book where we learn about them and it could be big spoilers, so I'm not gonna tell you anything except for the fact that I was right, there was vampires. I must have found this book somewhere on like a list that talked about vampire books, because there's no thing in the synopsis about vampires as far as I know, and I couldn't really see anything about vampires. But yeah, I did finish it, did fit into the vlog, so we do need to talk about it. I love this book. I thought it was such a good fun. It was honestly so a little bit dramatic, a little bit over the top, a little intense, but it's in the best possible way. Really, really fun, really interesting plot, super interesting world building, the way it was set up. Interesting main character, really spunky and fun, and I appreciate her power and her fire. And I really like the fact that there was a polyamorous relationship in this one, and it wasn't a throuple. It was actually my character having 2 relationships, both of the people being okay with it, but not a throuple, which I feel like is not that common, at least when I read like YA fantasy, adult maybe fantasy with polyamory, it's usually a throuple. So it was really cool and fantasy. I had a really good time with it. I think I'm gonna give it 5 stars because I had honestly a good time, maybe 4.5. Overall, like such a good time. I really enjoyed myself, and overall I would call this blog a really big success. So I have read 4 physical plus Fangs plus Silver Under Nightfall. So I have read 6 books for this vampire vlog, which I'm very pleased with. I wasn't sure I could get through all of them. And what I've learned is I love vampires. I do. I think they're all very interesting, and I had a good time with all of these books. I mean, I get 4, 4.5, 3, 3.5, 4.55, then Silver Under Nightfall 4.5, 4, and then Fangs was just fun, so like 4 stars as well. So like overall, insanely successful blog. Let's do the fun bit where I tell you how I enjoyed them. Okay, from most to least favorites, and let's not talk about, let's not include Fangs because it was just really cute, but I don't have that much to say. So I would put Silver Under Nightfall first as favorite, then In the Ravenous Dark, then Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, then Deathless Girls, then Fledgling. But if we were talking about how interesting were the vampires themselves, Fledgling, most interesting, then the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, then I would put Silver Under Nightfall, then The Ravenous Dark, then Deathless Girls, and then probably Fangs at the bottom of that. But yeah, no, this was a great vlog. I had so much fun. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and reading all these books about vampires. I hope you enjoyed the vlog. I hope you had a good time chatting to me. I had a good time chatting to you. There's more videos coming where I'm going to be reading, you know, doing reading vlogs and all that. So if you're into this, which we probably are because no one watches my vlogs, so you're on my, you know, my OGs. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of the books I have read here. Let me know what's your favorite vampire book of all time. I just asked this question and it was like this hardest question. Like all of these had something unique to offer. All of these had a different spin on the vampires and had something different to say, and I think that's so cool. I have read some vampires book prior to now as well. There was a phase of vampires being all about YA romance or like paranormal romance. That was vampires. Not even YA, sorry, adult as well, and True Blood, Vampire Diaries, of course, Twilight. You can't forget about Twilight, Vampire Academy. They were all very specific type of book, and I feel like they had very specific type of vampire where they're virtually the same, slight differences, but it was all contemporary setting and a romance. Whereas now I feel like we're having vampires come into fantasy and be truly the scary, weird creatures they're meant to be. And each of these had such a unique, different aspect and mythology and reasoning behind it. I think it's just so much more interesting. So I had a great time. I really hope you decide to pick up any of these. If you enjoyed this vlog, if you could comment, like, and subscribe, I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. But that's it from me, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.